Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's Friday afternoon. It's spring 2021. We begin our journey of the spring workshop series, Friday Ambassador Workshop Series, with my good friend John uh, from Queens College. And we're going to hold off a couple minutes to let everybody get in the room. But John has asked if you guys could grab a pencil and a piece of scrap paper. We're going to do some real nifty work today. And the chat, I believe, is open for you guys. You guys can rename yourselves if you like. No pressure to be on screen. If you would like to, that's great. And I'm getting everybody in the room. And I'm going to sort of like, do you want me to do any special introduction for you, John? We didn't talk.
No, that's okay.
So John and I are longtime friends. We started very close to the same time at CUNY. And he's been at Queens College. He's a big shot. You know, he moved up the ranks. He's very well loved at Queens College. And I've always been at Hostos, and we have a nice relationship. He has a beautiful son, a beautiful wife. I've never seen his wife, actually, but a beautiful wife. And he's a really great individual, one of the best in all of CUNY. And for a long time, we really wanted to work together. And I'm really excited that he's going to kick us off for the spring 2021. So I think that's a good introduction for John. I'm going to sort of be here, but I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, I'll share screen in a moment. Just
welcome everybody, all the new people.
Yes, hello everyone. If you do speak, please say your name first, because you know the way Zoom goes, you have to scroll to see everybody. Feel free to interrupt me. If there's no noise in the background, there's no reason to mute. If I take a breath, then jump right in. Jason will tell you that I can talk. The only things you need are a piece of scrap paper and a pen. So if you want to grab that now, that would be great. I am going to share my screen and start my presentation and share. Okay, is everybody with me? Does anybody need a minute to grab? Feel free to unmute yourself. I think they can unmute themselves, right? Yes, so feel free to unmute yourselves. You just need a scrap of paper and a pen. Today's presentation is all about hope. I wanted to say I've got my special hope t-shirt on, which I generally wear for live presentations, and because it's just a headshot, I know that you can't see this, but I am wearing my hope t-shirt. There's several ways we can go with this presentation. I'm going to gear it towards college students. We are going to use a special instrument called the Hope Scale. I have never been big, Jason has probably heard my spiel on this before, on edutainment. That is what I call testing instruments that don't have much research behind them. This one absolutely, positively does. Let me see if I can, there we go. So the name of this presentation is Hope is a Plan B. My name is John Andrejack. It's Dr. John Andrejack. A couple of rules. Please call me John. If you can't call me John, Dr. Andrejack or Dr. John is fine. No Mr., no Sir. Just try to keep it at John. It'll keep it simple. You see the name of my blog there. And if you scroll up and down on my blog, you will see all of this information on hope. But I have sent Jason the information in advance, but I've asked him not to share it with you until afterwards, so you're not looking at papers on your lap instead of watching the presentation. So these are the main 5 points that I want you to remember in the order that I want you to remember them. If you forget everything else, remember that hope is an active process. The second thing I want you to remember is that hope is a combination of willpower and way power. The fancy psychological term for willpower is agency, and the fancy psychological term for way power is pathways. Does anybody want to take a guess? I think we all know what willpower is. Does anybody want to take a guess at what way power is? Promise not to judge you, just jump in and take a guess, someone.
Opportunities.
Yeah, it's seeing an opportunity, and an opportunity can present itself to you in a plan. So it's having, hope is having the desire and the ability to do something and a plan on how to do it. You know, willpower makes you not want to give up, but willpower without a plan is generally not any good. Hope often comes in the form of a plan B. Your life is going along well, you lose your job and you need to go back to college and reassess. That is one example of a plan B. I will give you my example. Hopeful people have often overcome challenges. They find, from a research standpoint, if someone has overcome obstacles or challenges, it actually makes them more hopeful, not less hopeful. And hope can be thwarted by certain goals. And what I mean by that is, if you're a C student now, maybe being an A student is too much of a jump. You could stretch your goals to be a B or a B plus student. So sometimes when you reach for that impossible dream, instead of building up to it in little steps, you can thwart your goals. But hope is an active process. It's composed of willpower and way power. Got to have a plan B. Hopeful people have often overcome challenges, and sometimes hope can be thwarted by reaching for goals beyond your grasp.
John.
Doesn't mean, yes.
Henry.
Sure, Henry, how are you?
Hi. Quick notation. Can I compare agency, willpower, and way power and pathways with sort of passion and purpose?
Yeah, you can definitely. Passion is similar to willpower because you could feel passionately about something and not have the drive to do it. But yeah, I think that's a nice way to look at it. And I encourage you to take this presentation. And if you can find things on purpose and what was the word that you used, passion,
Yes.
and use this information with those terms, I think that would be great. I think those are good synonyms. I'm going to see if I can change the slide. Oh, there we go. So what was my plan B? About 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. It started when I was in my mid-30s. This finger would wiggle back and forth on its own. But I went to a doctor and he said, do you have a familial tremor? It's a tremor that runs in your family, generally your handshake. I said, yeah, my aunt has it, my uncle has it, my mother has it, and some of my cousins have it. And he said, how do you treat it? And I said, well, we just all pretend not to notice it. And he said, the American Medical Association does not recommend that as a treatment plan. So he gave me some medication, but it made me really cold. So I stopped taking it and I went on with my life. Then I got frozen shoulder, multiple cases of frozen shoulder. It's painful, it's hard to move your shoulder, but I was working out, I was doing a lot of active things. So they thought I had just injured myself. Later on, my arms stopped swinging naturally and I started to limp. My anxiety was out of control. I was very depressed. And soon I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease at age 48. So now I'm 54, it's been 6 years. So I had to pivot, I had to have a plan B. What was I going to do? Let's see. I sent my wife and son, I'm in Treadwell, New York. You might be able to see the snow outside of the window. It's my wife's family's country house. And they wanted to go away for the weekend. And I was going in to get my final diagnosis and confirmation that I had Parkinson's disease. So I said, why don't you guys go away for the weekend? Because I have a lot I need to deal with. So I got the diagnosis on a Friday, and I spent a good portion of that day walking around Manhattan, muttering to myself, what am I going to do? I need a plan. I need a plan. I need a plan. Then something popped into my head, something that my father said to me. Something horrible happened to him. And I don't like to tell his story because it's his story. But when he told me about it, I said, what did you do? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And he said, what do you think I did? I had a family to support. I dealt with it. I got up and went to work the next day. So when that popped into my head, I thought, well, all I've got to do is get through the weekend and go to work on Monday and just keep on keeping on. So at that point, I didn't feel that I needed a plan, but I did need a plan. Getting up and going to work on Monday were in that plan. The goal, my ultimate goal in life has always been to be happy. There are a lot of steps to happiness. When the depression first set in, I didn't know it was caused by Parkinson's. I was in therapy, I was eating, I was exercising. Nothing seemed to help. So I decided to follow a behavioral approach, which is I would watch people who I thought were happy and do what they did, and came to the conclusion that happy people danced. So I took dancing lessons. I was never a good dancer, but I made a lot of new friends that I have kept to this day. And that was my goal. My goal was happiness. So when I got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, I wanted to have the same goal. I wanted to be as happy and healthy as I was before. So if you're wondering how I became interested in hope, first I read Daring Greatly, How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Parent, and Lead by Brene Brown. Has anyone read this book? Speak up if you have. Has anyone heard of, Jason's read the book. Has anyone heard of Brene Brown? Yes? You can watch her specials on Netflix. I highly recommend them. She is engaging, she is entertaining, and if you read her books, there is a lot of research behind them. But she started to talk about hope as a plan B. Something happens in your life and you need to change your plans. She then mentioned a book called The Psychology of Hope. You can get there from here by C.R. Snyder. And that just seemed to have a lot of appeal to me because she said there was a lot of research behind it. You could get a plan on how to be more hopeful. So I ran out and bought the book. Before I go any further, is there anybody who would like to describe a time in their life when they hit an obstacle and needed a plan B? It doesn't have to be something as overwhelming as being diagnosed with a disease.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jonessi.
Thank you for sharing.
It's kind of something that happened to me 4 years ago, and it still struck me. So I'm just gonna be a little like straightforward. It's something really big that happened to me, and I think it's like I'm over it, but I'm not. But I just I learned how to carry my cross. That's how I say it. So in the meantime, when this started, I started going to domestic violence classes and taking meditation. And I started my GED. I started coming to Hostos, the GED, the CUNY first. And, I just climbed the ladder and I'm still climbing it. So it's like always get something to do.
I
And
think
that's like always a plan. Is for me, it's a plan B, but it's never finished. It's a plan B, C, D,
But we're always a work in progress. I think that's an excellent example. Something tragic happened to you And you use that as an opportunity. Your plan B was self-improvement. You ran out and got your GED and you enrolled in Hostos. You started meditation. And what else did you do besides meditation?
It was a class where you did meditation, you did drawing. You tell if you wanted to get up and tell your story, and you made friends. A lot of people were a lot of help to me. Also, I have my therapy, of course. And people at Hostos were very nice, and that's why every time that Jason calls me for a workshop, I'm there. So anything that can put me away. Like, it's not like I don't want to be numb. I do want to feel it, because that's how much of improvement you can make. Dealing with your problem and being smart about it and strong about it. Yeah, and just always fighting for the better.
Well, thank you for sharing your story and willing to be vulnerable. When I was first diagnosed, I had very little symptoms. So I thought I could pull it off. And my wife, this is the reason she recommended this book, The Courage to Be Vulnerable. She said, if you don't tell people, they can't help you. And they're going to guess at what they think is wrong. I haven't had anything to drink in over 25 years, but I found out from my receptionist that people thought I was drinking again because of the way I walked. So I was very glad that I was vulnerable and let people know what was wrong, because they might come up with their own conclusions. So I read the book by C.R. Snyder, The Psychology of Hope. You can get there from here. If you're going to buy the book, I recommend buying it used on Amazon. I got it, including shipping, for $7. I'm a shopper. I like to get things cheaply. It is a good book, and I recommend it because it reads like a textbook, but it's not written in psychological language. I told you that I liked research, so the first thing I did was check out the author of the book. He was a distinguished professor at the University of Kansas and the editor of the Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology. So I figured the guy knows what he's talking about. I want to come back to what is hope. Hope is an active process. It's something you do. It's willpower plus way power used to overcome an obstacle or to reach a goal. It often comes in the plan of a plan B. Hopeful people are people who have overcome obstacles, but sometimes if you reach too far and you do not succeed, that initial failure might stop you. And I'll get into that a little bit later. This is not telling you that you shouldn't reach for big goals. Willpower is a reservoir of determination and commitment, and way power is composed of mental plans and roadmaps that will provide you a route to your goals. Way power often provides an alternate plan or a plan B. And once again, I just want to keep insisting that hopeful people are ones who have overcome obstacles or difficulties. Hope is not optimism. Optimists often blame their failures on external forces. In higher education, we see this all the time. A student is on probation, they're going to be dismissed, and horrible things happen to students all the time. But sometimes you deal with people who do not take any responsibility for their actions. So a hopeful person recognizes that their successes and failures are linked to them. If they fail at something, they see to themselves, was it my plan? Was it a poor plan? Or was it a poorly executed plan? Either way, they go back to the drawing board and they start again. People that are not truly hopeful people look for things outside of themselves to blame their situation on. This does not mean that things don't happen. I mean, life happens, but it's how you deal with it and how you own your successes and failures. The best example I can give you is, if you know somebody who's not hopeful, they'll say, the professor gave me an F. But if they got an A, they'll say, I earned an A. So that's just one example. I love this quote. I'm going to try to move this a little bit out of the way so I can read the quote. Hope is not blind optimism. It's not ignoring the enormity of the task ahead or the roadblocks that stand in your path. It's not sitting on the sidelines or shirking from a fight. Hope is that thing inside of us that insists, despite all evidence to the contrary, that something better awaits us if we have the courage to reach for it and to work for it and to fight for it. Hope is the belief that destiny will not be written for us, but by men and women who are not content to settle for the world as it is, who have the courage to remake the world as it should be. Barack Obama is one of my favorite presidents. And he is hopeful, and he sees hope as an action. I think it's evident in this quote. He was not the first person to say this, but he said this often. We are the ones we've been waiting for. If you're waiting for a hero, if you're waiting for somebody else to come and save the day, it may never happen. I think the wonderful thing about student leaders is they often become student leaders because they saw a problem at their school and they ran for elected office to do something about it. Does anybody have an example of that? Anybody who became a student leader to change something that really bothered them?
So hi, my name is Sukmani. I didn't become any leader or anything, but like, I mean, initially, I'm originally from India, and then I came here 4.5 years ago, and it was a task to get into school, with all my getting all the evaluation done and, transcripts and whatnot. It was a task. Like, I'm telling you, I tried at least 2 years and I finally got in. And, I would see like a lot of people in class they wouldn't read like whatever the professor was teaching them. They wouldn't be always, very clear basically. And I was the kind of person who would always, wait a little more extra, after the classes ended, just to make sure that everybody understood and, we were all at the same page. So yeah, it wasn't like leadership, but I was always there. I was very happy to help people in that sense. So yeah, just wanted to share that. Yeah.
If you're speaking up in your class because something is not clear and you want it to be clear for yourself and others, that is leadership. I mean, that clearly is leadership, and it's leadership to help others, which is the best kind of leadership. You do not have to be the president of the student association to be a leader. Jason will probably tell you many years, I would say most years, the greatest leader on our campus is not the president of the student association. Yeah. The person who enacts the most change is not that person. So if you volunteered for a position, it doesn't mean that you're not a leader. Just because you didn't win something in an open election. I mean, getting elected is one thing. Being a leader is something else. At Queens College, and things have changed, but when I first got there, it was all about winning the position. And what you did with it once you got there was kind of secondary. There was a lot of celebrating the fact that you won the position and not a lot of doing once you got it. So leadership is definitely not about running for office or getting election or winning an election. I love this quote.
Excuse me,
yeah.
John, I'm sorry. I don't know if you could tell, but I have my hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really bad at that. Go ahead.
It's okay, no worries. I just wanted to piggyback off of what, please correct me if I murder your name. I'm so sorry. I think it's pronounced Sukmani. But I'm
Yes,
also
it's
happy to.
Sukmani.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad. Okay. I'm also glad to see you here because I also remember that I interviewed you too. So it makes me happy to see that you're also here on the call. And
Yes, I
taking
remember.
advantage of this. Yeah,
Yes.
and I'm glad that you shared your story too, and as John said, like what you showed, that was the first step of leadership. You cared enough to stay behind and make sure that other students understood the material and that if they needed help, you were willing to lend that helping hand. So I do admire that, and that you're well on your way to leadership because you've already shown leadership potential and the things that you do and the way that you act. And with that being said, like I just wanted to share like a little bit of like my leadership story with Hostos because I was like you. I didn't really join any clubs or do anything like my first semester when I got to Hostos. So like Sukmani, when you felt like you didn't like you weren't like, oh, leadership, like I don't know. I'm like, girl, no. You were definitely doing your thing. You're definitely showing leadership capabilities,
Thank
because
you.
sometimes we doubt ourselves, and that's like a big mistake. Like you should never doubt yourself because, just because you don't feel like you're at the level, as John said, like the president of the school, doesn't mean that you're not doing your part or that you're not worthy in some way or showing that you have the potential to be a future leader, because it all starts with like small steps before you get to the big steps. And like when I first got to Hostos, like I said, my first semester I didn't really do anything, but then my second semester I joined clubs and I did more stuff. And I wasn't like the president of the Student Government Association, but I started off small and then I, grew into a larger role of leadership. And by the end of my semester when I graduated from Hostos, I had graduated with an honor, like an award, and the award was called the Voice of Change Award. So that's given to a recipient like every year at Hostos, or from what I've been told, it hasn't been given out for the last, I think, 2 years or 3 years. And I was the recipient for the year 2020. And basically it was for my outstanding service to the DACA undocumented and international student community. And like John said, I just chose to help a group of people that I felt like were very much ignored and silenced on campus. They didn't really have a voice. No one was really interested in helping them. And even me being the president of the Hostos Dream Team Club, it wasn't easy. Like there was a lot I had to deal with, and figuring out the best way to serve the students that I was working for and what I was working towards, and also educating myself about immigration rights and ways to help them and obtain like access to higher education and scholarships and things like that. So it's just like, it can start with something as small as you staying back in a classroom, Sukmani, and wanting to help out those students, because it's the same way that I was like, you know what, I want to help out these group of students because no one really cares to help them. And I'm not an immigrant myself, but I identified with them and I felt their stories and I listened to them and I learned about them and their experiences and their struggles. And I was like, how can I help you? Achieve greatness? How can I help you be the best version of yourself? How can I help you live your best life? So it's just small steps like that. So I think you're doing great.
Before I get on to, thank you, by the way, for sharing. Before I get on to this next slide, who was the first person who shared the story about getting her GED and going to the self-help group and the meditation and then coming to Hostos?
That was
You
me,
speak that?
Yonesi Diaz.
How do you say your name? Yonesi?
Yonesi, yes.
You are the perfect example of this next slide. That's Life by Dean Cain is a song that Frank Sinatra made popular. If you know it, you probably only know it because your parents or grandparents play it. But there's this one line, some people get their kicks off of stomping on a dream. And when I say that some goals can thwart your hopefulness, I'm not here to stomp on your dream, but you engage like Nessie did in goal stretching. She got her GED. She went to a self-help group. She started with meditation. She's going to Hostos, maybe to a 4-year college. she built on it in steps. People often pick goals or let other people pick goals for them that get them stuck. The best example I can give of this is I know someone, and I will not mention her name or how I know her, who is a grandmother. She is a wonderful grandmother. She is living on Social Security. She has basically no other source of income. But every time I talk to her, she says, I want to own property. I want to get a home. I want a lot of land. And I say to her, like, well, you're a wonderful grandmother. You're wonderful at this. You're wonderful at that. On $1,600 a month in Social Security, which is what she makes, maybe owning property is too big of a reach. And if it's not too big of a reach, what is your plan? What are your steps for getting that property? Unfortunately, every time I talk to her, she's just heartbroken that she can't own property. And that's what I mean by getting stuck. What I mean by letting other people pick your goals for you. They have done studies psychologically and physiologically of the brain, and it is very difficult during the college years for you to decide what you want to do with your life. It is called the identity crisis. And it's something that we all struggle with. I think adults ask children what they want to do when they grow up because we're all still looking for ideas. We're like, astronaut, can I do that? Am I too old for that? I have known so many students whose parents, whose aunt and uncle, older brother picked a major for them. And then they wonder why they don't do well when they have no passion, they have no willpower for that. I always use accounting. I worked at Pace, it was my first job in higher education, and students would say to me, I passed the accounting exam. I got an internship at one of the biggest accounting firms in New York City, and I'd say, that's fantastic. And they'd say, yeah, but I'd rather watch paint peel than be an accountant. And the mistake they made was they let somebody else pick their dream for them. So what I did was I talked to them about having a bachelor's degree as a jumping off point. You don't necessarily have to be what you majored in, but it's generally a good idea, even if it takes you a long time, to pick your own dreams. This is the adult dispositional hope scale. I wanted to show you what the original instrument looked like before we look at the instrument that we are going to be using today. It's 8 simple questions. If you have a piece of scrap paper, let me, your piece of scrap paper, I'm going to try to go backwards. Boom. There we go. Your piece of scrap paper should look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you could do that now, it would be great. That rhymes. You can see the Parkinson's at work. My hand is shaking. But just alternate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'll give you a moment to do that. If you need extra time because you have difficulty writing or need to flag down a friend or a family member, just raise your hand so I know you need some additional time. Is everybody good? Raise your hand if you need some additional time. Okay, we're good to go. So all you have to do is next to each numbered question, write 1 if it's definitely false, 2 if it's mostly false, 3 if it's mostly true, and 4 if it's definitely true. So let's start with the first one. I energetically pursue my schoolwork. Go with the first answer that comes to mind. Don't spend too much time on it. The second one, I can think of lots of ways to make good grades. Is that definitely true, false? Is it mostly false, mostly true, or definitely true? Put the number that corresponds next to number 2. Number 3, my past academic experiences have prepared me well for future success. Number 4, there are lots of ways to meet the challenges of any class. Go with your gut. Number 5, I've been pretty successful in school. Number 6, I can think of lots of ways to do well in classes that are important. Number 7, I get the grades that I want in my classes. And finally, number 8, even if the course is difficult, I know that I can find a way to succeed. So you should have numbers written down next to each number 1 through 8. Add up the odd numbers and the even numbers first. So you'll have a score for your odd numbers and a score for your even numbers. You now know why I told you to go back and forth like this, just to make it even simpler. I played with an online form while giving a presentation, and I found that most of the questions were about the online form. So I'm going low tech. So add up your odd number score and your even number score, and then add your odd number score and your even number score together so you have one score. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, let's move on. So your odd score shows your willpower, and your even score shows your way power or ability to make a plan. Any score above 24 is a high score. Any score below 24 is a low hope score. Does anyone want to share their score? Just speak right up.
Sure. Henry, John.
Hi,
I got a
Henry, how
23.
are you?
I'm good.
23.
I failed. My score was 23.
That we're going to talk about why the score is not so important as what you do with it, but thanks for sharing. You're just a little on the low end of the hope score. Anyone else like to share?
Yes, hi, John. This is Estelle Nwambi. I got 31.
Wow. So 32 is the highest score. You are certainly a hopeful person. Yes, someone is raising their hand. All I can see is roses. I don't see a name. If your icon is the roses, please speak up.
Afnan.
I guess 29.
29. Wow, that's also a high score.
Okay.
Anyone else want to share? Okay, let's move on. So you're probably saying, great, like now I know my hope score. This is what I mean by edutainment. Like sometimes we do true colors and people are like, I'm an orange, and all the oranges get together and cheer. And then they don't know where to go from there. I'm not putting down true colors. I'm just giving an example. Your hope score is not as important as what you do with it. I want to ask you a question that will directly relate to you. Do you think students with academic challenges are lacking in willpower or way power? Jump right in, shout right out. Just speak up if you want to guess.
I'll say I'll go with willpower.
Okay, anyone for, that's one for willpower, anyone for way power or willpower? Okay, so let me give you the studies sort of indicate way power. Students who are readmitted after being academically dismissed, and I've worked with those students, have a 6-year graduation rate of only 4%. So people who are academically dismissed and let back into college generally do not do well. But one study found that if they were academically dismissed and they met with an academic advisor just one time and developed a plan, they were retained at similar rates to the institution as a whole. So at my college, that would mean you were academically dismissed, you came back, you didn't meet with an advisor, your chances of succeeding in 6 years, 4%. If you met with an academic advisor, your chances of succeeding shot up to 57%. So if you don't think meeting with your academic advisor is a good idea, here is proof that it is. And these are the actual studies that are quoted here. Does anybody want to take what happened at a meeting with an academic advisor? Just take a guess.
Success rate increased.
No, what do they do at the meeting? Yes, their success rate definitely increases, Henry. You're right on that. What do you think they
About the
discuss?
pathway for your course, whatever course you're taking.
Right, they talk about how they can succeed in the courses that they're taking, but there's one important thing that happens a great deal of the time.
Make a plan.
Making a plan is definitely making a plan, but oftentimes these students decide to change their major. When we look at students who are academically unsuccessful, you're not going to believe this. This is what the research shows, but it's also what I see. Most of their bad grades are in their major. And then when you ask them, why do you want to be an accountant? The answer is most often, well, my mother was an accountant. My father was an accountant. I want to make a lot of money was the answer. And so we would say, why don't you go to academic advising and talk about a different major, but then go to career services and say, what jobs can I do with this major? So if your goal is to make a lot of money, but you're not good at accounting, find a job with earning potential and find out what people who do that job major in. So the students who shot up in success, who had that one meeting, at least one meeting with an academic advisor, often talked about changing a major to something they were passionate in. Does anybody have an experience of changing their major that they would like to share? I see someone want to speak.
Oh, sorry. Can I speak?
Yes, please.
So I had actually enrolled in Hostos as a radiology major, and but in the middle, I thought that, you know, if I'm doing radiology tech, I might as well, because, you know, I kind of am like a good student, if I may say so. But, you know, I thought maybe, you know, let's just plan to become a doctor and let's just, you know, go the pre-med route. But, you know, then I was like, you know, I'm already in my late 20s and, you know, I'll be 40 when I become a doctor and, you know, I won't be able to enjoy anything. So like, you know, I came back to radiology tech, but I think I made the right decision. So yeah, it was, yeah.
And what is your major now?
Radiology tech.
Radiology tech. And Ariana shared with us that she changed her major from nursing to liberal arts. Do you care to share like how that changed things for you academically? It's okay if you don't want to share. I'm not good at multitasking, so I'm sorry if I missed someone's comments in the chat. I do realize that if you're more of an introvert, the chat is easier to share. So I will try to get better at this. This is my first time doing this presentation via Zoom. Somebody came to Hostos for computer science and chose design, digital design. How do you like digital design? You can share in chat or verbally. Okay, I will move on, but what this shows, the point that I'm illustrating is that these students weren't bad students. They weren't lazy. They were not studying. They were studying. They simply didn't have a plan that worked for them. And by meeting with academic advising, they formed that plan. So this just shows you the importance of a plan. There is that old saying, which is sort of trite but true. The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So as expected, the hope scores, they did a lot of research on this dispositional hope scale, the academic version, and hope scales correlated means that if somebody had a high hope score, they did well academically. So academic performance was high, hope score was high. Academic performance was low, hope scores were low. Higher hope scores reliably predicted higher GPAs, likelihood of graduating, and low hope scores predicted lower GPAs and the likelihood of being dismissed. Hope scores have been, the hope scale has been done with people of color, with women, with people who were paralyzed from traumatic spinal cord injuries. Many, many different groups and individual research articles were printed on each of these groups. So it seems to have a lot of credibility. I wanted to talk to you about getting stuck. As I said before, typically all students are capable of academic success, but in many times they're in the wrong major and poor grades in their major courses are holding them down. This does not come from me, this comes from a research study. They usually blame other circumstances, which are real. I work with students who can't pay their bills, who are academically dismissed, and I hear some horrible stories. That being said, a great deal of students do not take responsibility for their failures, and they're also not good at taking compliments for their successes. People with high hope scores who tend to be successful link their successes and failures to something that they did. Did I not try hard enough, or did I just have a bad plan? And if so, they go back to the drawing board and they start again. In my house, my son is now 10 years old, and my wife has little signs with reminders up everywhere. And one of those reminders is mistakes make us better. Successful people are people who have made a tremendous amount of mistakes. So what can I do? You're saying now my hope score is a 23, it's a 29, it's a 31. What do I do with that? You set goals. My hope score is a 24, it's average. I could sit around and worry about my hope score. Research shows that hope scores don't change very much. We'll talk about that again. But is it really important what your hope score is if you're achieving your goals, if you're doing what you really wanted to do? They found that setting goals works if you set goals in many areas, not just one area. Does anybody want to guess as to why? Please just speak up if you want to take a guess.
I think
All
to
right,
create an even balance.
Yes, you create a balance in your life, and that's so important. But not only that, people who are successful in one area of their life tend to be successful in other areas. Why is that? they have found that success in one area gives you the willpower and the way power to be successful in other areas. If you have a good relationship with your parents, with your friends, with your brothers, your sister, chances are you put a lot of work into that relationship. And you can take what you've learned from being successful in that personal, that family relationship to school. You can translate, and there's a lot of evidence that shows that this occurs. And it's also important to rank your goals. They recommend A, B, and C. No more than 2 or 3 goals in each area. Once you achieve those goals, you could move on to other things. Very important, make time to accomplish each goal. So with your family, one of my goals was I wanted to make sure that Parkinson's disease didn't run in my family. So my low-level goal, my C goal, was to do 23andMe. Now, because I had Parkinson's disease and they wanted my DNA, I got to take it for free. But I was thrilled to know that it didn't run in my family. But if it did, that would be okay. I would just have to have a plan B for how I would deal with that. You might say that you want to spend 1 day a month with your grandmother as a family goal. You might want to spend more time with your brother. You might want to talk with your mom weekly on the phone. Work goals. A big work goal for you might be able to make an impression on your boss, or just being on time is a challenge, especially when you're a student and you have so many obligations. I mean, many of you are parents, students, full-time or part-time employees. Being on time is a big goal and you shouldn't discount that. Another goal might be to compliment people more often. Giving compliments to people is extremely important. If you see somebody doing well, let them know that. It will give them the energy and the drive to continue. Health. This is something that I'm working on right now, trying to exercise more. Because of the pandemic, I'm not going to the gym. I've gained weight and my health has suffered because I know from research that people with Parkinson's disease do far better if they work. I loved the answer. First of all, I don't know Jordan Peterson, but I would like to hear about him. But I do like the answer, trying to find balance between your work life and your family, because family is extremely important. I've done a lot of things badly. At times, I've been a bad employee. At times, I haven't been the best person in the relationship, but I don't want to be a bad father. That is a big goal of mine, is to try to be a good father. So I have to have balance between work and family. And that being said, Jason said that I'm a bigwig. I'm sort of middle management. I could move halfway across the country to become a vice president or an assistant vice president with the hopes of coming back to New York and getting that goal. That would not be the best thing for my son or my wife. So I choose to stay in the position that I'm in now because I want a balance between my work and family life. But if you can set goals and rank them A, B, and C, and then write down, I'm trying to stop this. I'm having a Parkinson's moment. Oh, there we go. If you can set goals A, B, and C, let me get back to it. There we go. If you can rank your goals A, B, and C, 2 in each category, and you can make them in relationship, family, work, health, and school. A word about relationships. Not everybody has to be in a relationship. Some people are happy by themselves. If you're not in a relationship, it doesn't mean that you can't work on it if that's a goal that you have. Health, working out is something that will help with almost everything. They gave 2 groups of people exercise programs. They set them up for success. They built them with low goals and built them up. and they got them excited about exercising. The people who were in the average category stuck with that exercise program, 20% of them stuck with it. The people who were in the clinically depressed category, 80% of them stuck with it, because exercising raised their endorphins, raised their dopamine level, and generally made them feel better about themselves. So exercise is really important. Your health is really important. It should be an A or a B level. It should not be. My Go Vegan one was something that I did many years ago, and I have never regretted it. But health and exercise and wellness are so very important and should not be discounted. I can't say this enough. Make your bed, make your bed, make your bed. There are tons of different research studies. They've all come up with different reasons, but when they ask highly successful people, what is the first thing they do every day? Even people who could afford somebody to do their own bed. Does anybody want to guess as to why that makes them successful? Anybody want to shout it out? Take a guess. I haven't said anybody was wrong before or made fun of you when you gave the wrong answer before, so take a shot.
I think maybe it creates like a I think it maybe creates like a routine.
It creates a routine. That's definitely part of it.
Can I take a shot, John?
Please, Henry, I'd love to hear it.
I think it's a metaphor for what you make out of life is what you're going to be stuck with, so to speak, for lack of better words.
Right. If you make your bed, you started off on a good foot and you're ready to move forward. Is that what you're saying, Henry? Am I paraphrasing that correctly?
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
And you're controlling your own situation, right? Hence the saying, like, you made your bed, you have to lie in it. But to put it in the simplest terms, making their bed gives them one goal that they have achieved. They set the goal of every morning when I get out of bed, I'm going to make the bed. And achieving that goal gives them the energy and the positive feeling and the willpower to achieve other goals. So I cannot, even if you just pull the blankets up and straighten them out a little bit, someone's got their hand raised. Can you, I can't see your name, but someone just raised their hand. If you just had your hand raised, could you please speak?
Oh, sorry, it was me. I pressed it by accident. I was trying to type something in the chat box, but I
That's
said
okay.
exactly what you said, that they do it just to look forward to something.
Right, and Estelle said it's an accomplishment, right? And that one accomplishment gets you started for other accomplishments. Some days at work, during the period that we academically dismiss students, we do it digitally, so there's no pile. But if there was a pile on my desk, it would be this high. One of the symptoms of Parkinson's disease is severe anxiety. So I go in, go ahead. Someone was going to say something.
Yes, this is John again, Henry.
Hi, John.
Henry again, John.
Henry.
Yes. Also, I was going to relate it to something you said earlier in terms of the major and someone else, you doing it for other people's reasons and not your own.
Right.
I kind of relate someone else making your bed for you opposed to you making your own bed in those same terms.
Yeah, I would agree. You're letting someone else accomplish or set your goals for you. That's an excellent observation. What I was saying is this severe anxiety sometimes stops me from doing anything. And I'm not always successful every day in overcoming it. But what I say to myself is just do one thing, review one appeal, let one student back into college, And I find if I just say all you have to accomplish today is one thing, I will get 10 or 20 things done. I am the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college. I got my younger brother to go to the same college as me, and my sister, who had dropped out of college, I got her to go to the same college as me. We went to William Patterson University in Wayne, New Jersey. I have an average hope score. I would consider myself to be an average person, and I tell you that for a reason. You can be a more hopeful person. You can be a more successful person than you are now. You do not need to be a rock star. Thank you for saying that's great. Anxiety and depression, I deal with it every day. I take medication for it. I go to therapy. I do my exercise. I take my Parkinson's medication. All of that helps, but it comes down to me. And I will share with you a struggle that I have. Every morning, there's a conversation that occurs in my head. And it could be a 20-minute conversation, or it could be a 30-second conversation. But it goes like this. It's going to be a horrible day. You're going to do terrible. Don't even bother getting out of bed. But the other voice comes in and it says, just put your feet on the floor. I know if you can put your feet on the floor, it'll be a good day. I know it. And I always get my feet on the floor. And then that voice says, get up and get ready. And that is a conversation that occurs every single day. So you do not have to be some dynamic, outgoing person who has been had a lot of successes before to be a hopeful person and to use that hope to drive your goals forward. As you can see, my Parkinson's sometimes makes it even hard for me to find where the mouse is. So make your bed. Successful people practice goal stretching. What do I mean by that? Well, you don't maybe start out by saying, I'm going to become a medical doctor. Maybe you start out by saying, I'm going to major in biology or chemistry. I'm going to get my bachelor's degree. Then I'm going to take what's the medical exam? Somebody help me. It's not MCAT. I'm going to take that exam and then I'm going to get into medical school. I have a friend who said, I'm working on my second million. And then when people go, wow, he says, yeah, I gave up on the first one a long time ago. Because maybe becoming a millionaire was a goal that was too high of a reach. Maybe a six-figure income first, starting my own business, steps. Successful people practice goal stretching. If they're a C student now, they say, I'm going to be a B student. They don't say, I'm going to get a 4.0 next semester. I'm not here to stomp on your dream. I'm just here to encourage you to make steps towards that. They set their own goals. They have goals in many areas of their lives, and they avoid getting blocked by avoiding distractions. If you have an important exam to study for, how many people have done this? Their phone is sitting right next to their computer. A pop-up comes up on your phone and you're like, oh, my friend said this on Facebook. And then before you know it, raise your hand if it's true. You've gone down a rabbit hole and you've spent 45 minutes responding to posts on Facebook. If that happens to you, put your phone in the other room. Sleep is important to me. My phone sleeps in the living room. I sleep in the bedroom. I try to get rid of distractions as much as possible. Tell your friends, I'm going to study during these hours. Please don't contact me unless it's an emergency. Tell your friends, tell your family members. Avoid getting blocked and distracted. Rank your goals. My wife is writing a book on self-care for parents of differently wired kids, right? Of kids that are special needs kids. She now wrote the first 2 chapters in the book proposal, and they want to publish her book, an actual publishing company, and she's thrilled. So she's now saying that besides my family and my health, getting this book finished is my number one goal. And that's the reason it's important to rank your goals so you keep your eyes on the prize. Set time aside to complete your goals. If you don't keep a calendar, you should. And you might want to say 4 to 6 o'clock on Wednesday is the time I study for chemistry. They find that if you do that, even if you're flexible and your plans change, keeping a calendar really helps. Take time to set your goals, but not too much time. And here's what I mean by that. I worked in an office where everybody read the 7 Effective Habits of Highly Successful People. Is that the name of the book? And people spent so many time color coding and writing their goals and making charts and graphs that most people in the office never accomplished anything. So making a plan is important, but eventually you've got to put it into action. Does anybody know anyone like that who spends more time planning than actually doing? It's okay, you don't have, I mean, the good thing about sharing here is that no one knows the person, but I have done that myself. I've been that person. And I've known lots of people. Eventually, you've got to say, I've got a good plan. There's an old saying, like, you take it out for a spin, you kick the tires. And if it doesn't work, you adjust the plan. You don't have to dive in head first. You can start with something small. Don't get obsessed with your goal list, but do discuss your goals with other people. So last semester, one of the things that I did during COVID was I wrote an article, an actual research article for a medical journal. I gave the patient point of view in some other articles from medical journals, and the editor of the Journal of Parkinson's Disease emailed me and said, I'd like you to co-publish a journal for our medical journal. And I was like, I haven't published anything in the field of higher education. I don't know anything about medicine. How am I going to publish something in a medical journal? So I took a deep breath. I looked at the list of co-authors that he sent me. I picked one and I typed, yes, I will write this article. And then I told my wife and 2 other people because I wanted to make it real. I wanted people to hold me to that task. And I did publish the article. It came out in March. So I'm really proud of that. It was a major accomplishment for me. Some people use MLA format. Some people use APA format. This was close to Chicago format. I have never used Chicago format in my life. And just formatting the paper seemed like a daunting and overwhelming task. But I talked to people who made me accountable, who held my feet to the fire and said, hey, how's that article coming that you're working on? Jason says something to everyone. You may want to take a look at what he says. That's an excellent point. So if you're not looking at chat, please take a second and look at Jason's comments. You keep your goals to yourself, you make them into gold and hold them precious, and other people can sometimes make them seem less important. Jason, could you comment on that? Give us a little more information on that comment.
Well, I was responding to one of the comments that was in the chat from I keep scrolling, but I was responding to one of the comments in the chat. But for me, I've always done that, right? As a writer, some of you guys know that I'm a writer, that you knew that I was a writer once upon a time. As a writer, if you come into a room and you're sitting with other writers and you discuss the story that you're writing, everybody has an opinion on your story, and they give you an opinion on the story. And then all of a sudden, all of that gets into your brain, and you start thinking, you know what? Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done that. Maybe this is not really all that good, and it destroys actually your process. So when I would write something, I would keep it to myself. I wouldn't share it with anybody, and I would hold it close to myself as my form of goal. This is the thing that my child, in fact, this is the thing that I'm going to hold closest to me, and nobody else can get at it until I'm ready for them to have a hold of it. And then once I'm done with it, I can let it out into the world, and you guys can make all your comments that you like. I've already created it. I'm not going to go back and change it now. But if you give it to other people too soon, it can deter you from actually completing your mission and getting to your goal.
I love the comment, not everyone is going to understand your goals and who you are. That is so true. But develop relationships built on trust. There are people that you might want to say, could you look at this, for grammar and spelling? Like the storyline I love and I want to keep, and I'm not interested in your feedback on, but I am interested in your honest feedback on the grammar, on the punctuation. So you can choose people. I have a friend who I go to when I want to hear the truth. His name is Keith Jones. And I tell him my trouble, and he always pauses and thinks about it. And then he says, do you want me to tell you everything's going to be okay? Or do you want me to tell you the truth? And sometimes I tell him, I just want you to show me and tell me everything's going to be okay. And sometimes I say, let me have it. What did I do wrong? So if somebody always makes you feel lazy or less than, maybe that's not the person you want to share your goals with. A lot of people who seem highly successful and puff up their chest haven't accomplished half the things that they say that they accomplished. So somebody you want to cultivate a relationship with is somebody who's going to be encouraging of you and your dreams. I have done the same thing, Jason, like when I had something that I was like really afraid I would flop in, I did keep it to myself, and that does work. So sometimes it's a 50-50 thing, but I do find when I find something challenging, I go to somebody who I trust and say, I'm going to do this, hold my feet to the fire, and make sure I get it done. This is my favorite quote that's on the screen right now by Brene Brown. Perfection is the enemy of done. Not everything has to be your magnum opus. Sometimes the paper that gets you the A is not the most perfect paper. Sometimes you don't need an A. Excuse me. Can you ask Mama? Hold on one second. My son has come in. Come say hello. Ocean, come say hello. So he is asking me to enter the screen time password so he gets more time on the computer. And there you go. Thank you. Bye, Ocean. I was going to use that as an example, Jason. Thank you for the thumbs up. A friend of mine gave me a great piece of advice. He said, what are you going to name your child? And I said, I'm going to, if it's a son, my wife and I have picked the name Ocean. And if it's a girl, we're going to pick the name Twilight, because I love being by the ocean, and twilight is my favorite time of day. And of course, we discussed the Twilight series, and we figured by the time she grew up, that would probably no longer be very important. But he gave me a great piece of advice. He said, you have picked unusual names for your children. Do not tell anybody, because if you do, they're going to try to talk you out of it. So I didn't, and therefore Ocean got the name which we wanted him to get. Once you give a child a name, people are not likely to say, well, that was a bad decision, right? So sometimes it is important not to share. Things that matter the most should never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. If you are studying for an exam, should that be at the mercy of Facebook? If you haven't seen a friend in 10 years, should that be at the mercy of doing your laundry? Decide what's most important to you and put it in the most important spot. Set time aside for it. I cannot stress that enough. Whenever you want to accomplish something, say to yourself, this is the most important thing. I'm not going to let these other trivial things get in the way. Sometimes you can't help it, but try your best. If you can remember, things that matter the most should not be at the mercy of things that matter the least, you will go very far, because it happens to all of us. Okay, how did all of this work out for me? My Parkinson's disease was progressing very slowly. My hope score is average. I'm a 24, I'm average. Because I was volunteering with the Parkinson's Association and exercising and doing everything right, my disease was progressing very slowly. My doctor would show me off to other doctors, to interns, to researchers, and go, look at how good John is doing. He's had Parkinson's disease for 4 years. But then something happened, and I needed a plan B. Around year 5 or 6, for many people who have young onset Parkinson's disease, your medication just stops working. It's literally like that. They call an off period a time when your medication is not working. So I would say 20% of my day, my medication was not working, and I limped, I shook, I was freezing cold, I couldn't control my body temperature, but it was only 20% of my day. I had 80% of my day to do well. Unfortunately, now 40 to 50% of my day, my medication is not working. So I needed a plan B. I tried 3 or 4 different medications, different treatment plans. They didn't work. So I said to myself, your health is the linchpin. If you're not healthy, nothing else is going to happen. So I spent every free moment I had in the last 2 months trying to get into a clinical study. And I just, Sukami, your hand is up. Someone just raised their hand. Could you might be muted. I see a hand raised.
It's a
Okay. Oh, it was a mistake. Okay. I'm very hard time multitasking. Many people with Parkinson's do. I'd like to blame it on just Parkinson's, but really I have a hard time multitasking. But I finally got into a clinical study. I went for the first intake where they took blood and other samples and did the EKG, and I'll start to get the medication, which is going to be delivered to me via a pump. So instead of like taking a pill and it wears off and taking another pill and it wears off, the medication will be delivered to me via a pump. My doctor and several other people in the community told me that the phase 1 and phase 2 of the clinical testing went really well, and this is going to be good for you. Yes, I do believe in holistic medication. My treatment, my wife is a yoga instructor, so yoga and meditation will greatly keep you flexible because people with Parkinson's lose their flexibility. I take other holistic treatment options that I don't want to discuss because I don't think they might be right for everybody. But yes, I believe in holistic medicine. I believe in a combination of Eastern and Western medicine. A lot of people are helped by acupuncture, for example. And if that's something that helps you, you should try it. But in any case, this is just a recent example. 2 months ago, my health was a mess. It's still a mess. I'm still struggling to walk 80% of the day. I'm dragging. It's the most annoying thing. It's between 12 and 2. So it's right when you'd want to go out to get lunch. I'm literally dragging my foot behind me. And fatigue is another symptom. So you can imagine walking slowly and dragging your foot exacerbates your fatigue. But I'm not willing to accept my current condition as the way I'm going to live. I'm getting involved in a clinical study, and if that doesn't work, I will go on to the next thing and try something else. I thought I'd show you some pictures of my family. This is my wife with the rainbow hair. This is my son, Ocean, who has shown to really enjoy surfing. And this is a surfing program. I'm going to close this door. This is a surfing program called A Walk on Water, and it is a surfing program for special needs kids. And the way they get them surfing is they surf with them. It's like tandem surfing. So if you've ever seen somebody tandem skydiving, like where they're attached to the skydiving instructor, I must admit, I did that. It was a huge rush. I don't know if I'd do it again. I think the scariest part is going up in that little propeller plane. Seems really unsafe to me. But this is my family, and you might see the big smile on my face standing here behind my son. I'm always the happiest when I'm near the ocean and I'm with my family. So that day was a real bonus for me. It is a tremendous effort for me to smile. I'm making a big effort because people with Parkinson's have what they call mask face. It's partial facial paralysis. We move on to the next slide. These are the points I want you to remember. Hope is an active process. It's not wishing, it's not dreaming, it's doing something. It's composed of willpower and way power used to achieve a goal. You have the drive to do something, you have a plan to do it, you're going to be more likely to achieve your goal. Hope often comes in the form of a plan B. I recently posted a lot of pictures on Facebook and people said, wow, you look great. You haven't looked so hopeful in ages. I said, yeah, I found a clinical study. That was my plan B. There's no treatment options currently available to me in this country. Maybe I can get a treatment option that hasn't been approved by the American Medical Association by getting involved in a clinical study. Hopeful people have overcome challenges. I mean, if you really think about people who inspire you, they've often overcome tremendous challenges. And hope can be thwarted by breaking goals instead of stretching for goals. Put your goals into steps. My wife didn't write a whole book. She wrote a book proposal. We have 2 bookshelves. If I was doing this in my apartment, you would see sticky notes that represent the outline of her book on our glass bookshelves. So it's a constant reminder to her. She didn't dive in and try to write a whole book. She did it in stages. If you can remember these 5 points, you'll do well. But if you can only remember one thing, it's that hope is an active process. If you can possibly remember 2, remember willpower is not enough. You have to have a plan, and you have to be willing to change that plan if that plan doesn't help you achieve your goal. These are the most common questions that I get. Can I change my hope score? Probably not. Research shows hope scores don't change. What difference does that make if you use the information you learned today to achieve your goals? But there is something called a situational hope test. I will send that to Jason. So this is like you just got that great new job. You want to see what your hope score is. In that situation, it will give you your hope score. Something tragic just happened in your life. You want to see how that affected your hope score. You can take the situational hope scale test and see that. But I warn you, chances are you're going to go right back to the hope score you were at before. But again, it's just a number. If you use the information you learned today to achieve your goals, who cares what your hope score is? How does the hope scale work with traditionally marginalized people, women, people of color, other marginalized people? They found 2 things. First, they found that people had low hope scores. Second, they found out that people had really high hope scores, but they had done it by setting their goals really, really low. So that's what the research shows. Is this backed up with research? Yes. It has been tested with people with spinal cord injuries, with college students, every group imaginable. If you go to Google Scholar and type in hope scores with, chances are you will see many different populations that it has been tested with. And I shared with Jason the research article that was written. It's like a 4 or 5 page article when C.R. Schneider developed the Hope Scale for college students. It is definitely backed up with research. Some goals about willpower. Remind yourself that these are your goals and therefore your responsibility. Talk to yourself in a positive voice. How many times, my wife says, stop saying we and say you. I can't tell you how many times I say, John, you're an idiot. You can't write an article in a medical journal. You have no background in medicine. And then I catch myself and say, well, wait a minute. You've written other things. You've been successful in other things. People tell you you're a good writer. You can do this. Talk to yourself in a positive voice. When you are having trouble, think back to times that you were successful. That will help. Get enough sleep, exercise, anticipate problems, and see those problems as challenges. I have the best example of anticipating problems. I had a staff member who, for some reason, thought that I had a set way of doing things and from that. And we had a sorority was involved in hazing, really bad hazing. And I said, that's it. I want them suspended for 4 years. This way, in 4 years, when they come back, it'll be a totally new set of people. The person who was in charge of Greek life was a woman. She was a coordinator. And she thought having them go through a series of educational programs was the best thing to do. The problem was me. She thought that I would give her a hard time and not let this happen. So what she did was she went to our other coordinator and said, you play John and you shoot down every idea that I give you, and I will argue why this educational program should happen and we should not kick them off campus. And then Ron Huggins, Jason might remember Ron, said, something amazing is happening in the other room. The coordinator is working with the other coordinator who's playing you and trying to see what obstacles she throws in your way to overcome it. I knocked on the door, I opened the door and I said, I am so impressed by this. Yes, we're going the educational program route. That is just one example of anticipating problems. And it also gave me pause to think that maybe I came on a little too strong at times. See your problems as challenges. You gotta laugh at yourself. I mean, sometimes I carry a cup of coffee across the room and half of it ends up on my socks. I laugh at myself. I mean, you just have to sometimes. This does not mean you speak to yourself in a negative voice. This just means you don't take yourself so seriously. Get some vitamin D. Let the sun shine on your face. I'm not talking about exposing yourself to skin cancer. I'm talking about if you've been working behind your desk all day, going out for lunch and getting some sunshine. If you think that you suffer from depression, see a therapist. Consider taking medication. I worry about our country where getting a broken leg means an immediate trip to a doctor, but we'll deal with depression for months and months and months without doing something. It's the same thing as a broken leg. You need help. And by the way, if you need help and you don't seek it, ask your friends if you're driving them crazy because you are using them as your ad hoc therapist. We live in a city where people quote their therapist at Starbucks online so everyone can hear them. There is no shame in going to a therapist. If you are depressed or you have anxiety or any other thing that could be considered a mental illness, I am a person with a mental illness. I own that and I do something to make my life better with that mental illness. Willpower. Break big goals into smaller achievable goals. That's called goal stretching. Think about different ways to achieve your goal. Rehearse your scripts for when you encounter a blockage, especially if it's going to be a person. I'm going to tell my mother that I want to do this. She's going to say that. I'm going to come back with this. Rehearsing actually helps. Cultivate friendships based on honesty. If somebody's a bragger and always makes you feel lazy, that's not somebody you want to go with to talk about your goals. If someone tells you that you're wonderful and everything's going to be great, that might be the person you want to call when you're down in the dumps. But ultimately, long term, that person is not going to be honest with you and tell you what you need to hear. And I made red, underline, and bold when you fail, because if you're going to be successful, you're going to fail. So when you do, ask yourself, was it a poor plan or was it just poorly executed? And either way, get back up and try again. At this point, I would really love to hear questions, and I must apologize for not being able to control the chat and give the presentation at the same time. But please, any questions that you might have, I would love to hear them. Any feedback?
Yes, John.
Yes, Henry again, please.
Yes. I just wanted to say that I learned a lot from your presentation. I think that you gave a lot of valuable information, something that I know I can definitely use in my career pathways. Again, I just think it was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. And also, I want to thank people who've been so honest. Someone just shared that they've been with the same therapist since they were 15 and they are now 21. That's amazing. Abdul is raising his hand. Abdul, do you want to say something? Are you muted?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just commenting for the first time since the workshop started. I've been at work and I could not speak inside, so I'm outside now. That's why I want to speak. I've been following up with the workshop from the start, though I was having some network connectivity problem along the line. But most of the discussions, the presentations so far are applicable to me. And the solutions also are applicable to me. Based on previous workshops and all, I learned some of the things, some of the solutions to the challenges I've been having. And these challenges are most of the challenges you're talking about in your presentation. So I want to really say thank you very much. I appreciate because it's like you are re-energizing my spirit to overcome all the challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your feedback. It's really inspiring to hear that. I also want to just make mention that the person who shared about the therapist said it was life-changing. Thank you for the feedback that I'm seeing now in the chat on the presentation. I also, if you get a moment, you could look at my blog. It's a day in my life with Parkinson's disease. You'll see it there on the bottom of the screen. It would be great if you, I haven't written anything in the blog in a while, but I would like to share you why. Everything that I wrote for the blog has been published elsewhere. So even though there haven't been any new blog posts, the last 3 blog posts were either one of them I was a guest blogger for the Journal of Parkinson's Disease. Another one was published in Brain and Health magazine, which is an online magazine. But so I'm not too upset that there's no new blog posts in a couple of months. Somebody has their hand raised. Jason?
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to read something from the chat.
Oh, please.
Yeah, so it says, "Hi, John, how are you? My name is Carlos Santiago. I'm legally blind. 10 years ago, I lost my vision and I thought everything was lost. However, regardless, either I stayed studying my SARS or I decided to have a plan Today you gave me what I needed, a booster. Currently, I'm a community health student, and above all, I predict a continuous standing. Thank you, John, for this essential treasure, and thank you for your story. And thanks, Jason.
Oh my God. Jason, is there any way that you can send me the chat discussion?
Yeah, I will save the chat. And I want to say to Carlos, John and I actually have, I don't want, we had a student that we shared a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who happened to be blind as well. And she went on to do extraordinary things, both at Hostos and at Queens College. I mean, she was a marvel, a great leader, and faced every obstacle with the smile and an absolute determination to overcome it. So I think that I'm sure that you will do the same. And I will share the chat with you, John.
Yeah, my email address is just my first initial and my last name at gmail.com. And I would love to share that quote in my next blog post, but of course I'm not going to do it unless you email me or you let Jason know that it's appropriate to do it. That is so inspiring. And the student that Jason is talking about, she just inspired me in so many different ways. When New York One wanted somebody to talk about how things in the city, the subway, getting around the city, anything to do with New York City and the disabled community, she was their go-to person. And when I saw that and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, I said, when people want to come to somebody like researchers, doctors, when people want quotes from a patient with a young onset Parkinson's disease, I want to be that person. And I was directly inspired by her being on New York One so many times. She was a leader at Hostos, she was a leader at Queens. She ran the Committee for Disabled Students. She literally, and she had multiple disabilities and multiple challenges. But she was an inspiration to me. We have a student who was born with one leg and he gets around. He's graduated a long time. He's very successful in the communications field. And he didn't let that stop him. He gets around on 2 crutches and 1 rollerblade. One point, public safety said to me, he should not be doing that. Rollerblades are not allowed on campus. They said, tell me who he is. I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to let you go after him. I said, I tell you what, if you catch him, you can stop him from riding the rollerblades on campus. And they could not catch up with him. So hopeful people are people who have overcome obstacles. But if you have quotes that you would like to share with me, Andrejack@gmail.com. I would love, love, love to see them. I promised you that this was based on research. So here are some of the books and research articles that I read to put together this presentation. I like the Brene Brown book. Seems like everyone is reading it, but I really liked The Psychology of Hope. You can get there from here. It gives you all the science and the information you need to back it up, but it also is in layman's terms without a lot of psychological mumbo jumbo. These are just some of the articles that I used for today's presentation. I want to thank you for being such a tremendous audience and for sharing your stories. They were very inspirational. Bill Clinton, I want to leave you with this. Bill Clinton used to say, I still believe in a place called Hope, because he was from a small town named Hope. I just want to leave you by saying, my name is John Andrejack, and I still believe in a process called hope. And thank you so much.
Thank you, John. It's awesome. I love you. One of my favorite people in all of CUNY. Really, really admire you and truly respect you as a professional. Thank you for bringing this message to the group. I think it's powerful. I think it will have long-lasting effect. That it will reach out beyond today's workshop, and we're going to share it with those who couldn't be with us today. So I want to thank you. Virtual applause. It's all sort of strange now with all these. It would be great to have you in the room with us where we could actually just do it all together. But if Zoom is the way to do it, then we do it.
When we all get back together, if you invite me to Hostos, I'll be there. I promise I will be there. And I want to thank you. This is the first time I did it on Zoom, so it's a little bit challenging for me to handle the chat. One of the things that I truly like about the chat is people who don't want to speak up can still be heard. And I should have asked Jason to help me handle the chat right from the beginning. So thank you for allowing me to do this first presentation via Zoom.
And I want to thank all of you for being here for the first workshop of the spring semester. I really appreciate it. I know that you're giving of your time. I also want to acknowledge that John is giving of his time. He does this of his own free will and to benefit the students of our college. So thank you, John, for doing that.
You're welcome.
We have a semester full of great workshops coming. Next week, I'm going to lend you over to Career Services and the Counseling Center. But after that, we have amazing workshops with amazing speakers like John all the way through May. A couple of surprises coming along the way. So I hope you'll be here with us on Friday afternoons to do this. This is my favorite part of any week, to get together with you and to see you, whether it's your physical face or your face that you put out there on your Zoom profile. This is why I love Hostos. This is why I love CUNY, and this is why I love the job that I have, and why I continue to do it and continue to try to do the work for you guys that I know that you love and you benefit from. So thank you for making it special, for making a great first workshop of the semester. If it's snowing near you, be careful out there. Be safe. I love you. Take care of yourselves. If you have any questions or you want, I will follow up with you with all of the stuff from John that he shares with me, including the PowerPoint. Next week on Monday, we will also post a video and I will share where you can get that information as well. So thank you again. Have a great weekend. John, take care. Hi to your wife and Ocean. I love Ocean. I love that name. My wife loves that name even more than I do. So when
He's a great kid.
we were talking about Marley, we were referencing Ocean, right? Because we were going to do a unique name. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for contributing. And
Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jason.
Bye-bye.
take care, everybody. Good to see you, Abdul. Good to see you, Henry. Everybody,
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jason.
take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye, guys.